Welcome to MMO Grinder Backtrack, where I take a look at games I've reviewed previously to check out what's new. Today in December of 2013, I'll be revisiting Neverwinter, the 3D action MMO created by Cryptic, published by Perfect World, and somewhat based on the Forgotten Realms franchise of Dungeons & Dragons. Neverwinter met with some serious turmoil during its launch, including the infamous Caturday issue, where players exploited a flaw in the auction house mechanics that inflated the Astral Diamond market to such lofty degrees that players were trading items in the most expensive cat pet, until Cryptic was forced to roll back the servers over 24 hours to remove all the damage that was done. So has this game finally found stability beyond this point? Let's look. Talk of the game invoking the current Cryptic standard of one server, multiple channels has finally been implemented, and all characters new and old are on the Dragon Shard now. This can be seen as both good and bad, as while the game looks far more populated now, all players, even those in non-English speaking countries, still play on the same server, and the odd issue of announcements and system messages triggered by overseas players being in their native tongue runs ever more rampant now. Couple this with the fact that the former unofficial roleplay server of Mindflayer is now forced to play along with the rest of these people. Well, at least it's easier to find friends now. Some were brought upon a few events. Most notable was the Midsummer Festival, which took place entirely in a separate area with its own set of activities to grind for festive goodies. A very interesting thing I noticed was the fact that the area set aside for this event was level balanced. It didn't matter if you were level 6 or level 60, you struggled with the same events and the same level of challenge that everybody else there was. This is an extremely clever way of handling events. For far too long in many MMOs, events were things that catered either entirely to the high-level players that were starving for more content, or was so focused on including the low-level players that it made anyone past level 10 skip the events for the fact that it wouldn't be worth the effort. Locking everyone into the same level equals the playing field, and ensures that a high-level player isn't going to snag all the loot and event goodies for themselves just because they've been playing for longer. More MMOs should approach the event system like this. After being locked to most players for a long while, the Drow Race has finally been released, available in 2 slight variations that will slightly change their general look and their race traits. So unfortunately, the level of Drizzt Wardens roaming the game is far more than ever. Shine on, MMO creativity. Recently, and by this I mean very recently added, was the hilariously named Hunter Ranger, the game's first physical ranged class, possessing the ability to switch between ranged shots and melee combos at will, when you hit level 10. I foresee some sort of balancing coming to this class, as the ranged mode's at-will powers are some of the most useful and powerful skills I've seen in the game, capable of taking out massive groups of enemies within seconds. Oddly enough, the class's encounter powers are far less useful, starting out with the long-distance backdash, a fairly ineffectual slow, and a situational rain of arrows move that's easily avoided. Each encounter and at-will power changes how it works depending on your stance. The game's earlier zones have been streamlined quite a bit, removing some of the more annoying layouts and more repetitive early quests. It's nice that some of the quests are removed for the sake of getting out of the areas sooner, but those who prefer having a lot of things to do seem disappointed by this adjustment. Alternate Paragon Paths were finally implemented for every class, except the new one of course, allowing for a bit more choice in how you want to build, even if my hopes for an Ice Mage and the Control Wizard path continue to go unfulfilled. Those who were shoehorned into choosing only one path that was available should have a free respec token waiting for them if they so desire the change. Any other resets will cost you Astral Diamonds, of course. The Rune Stone system got a bit of a confusing but highly welcome revamp, as those were the items voted most likely to clog your inventory while still being too useful to throw away by everyone who played Neverwinter. Before, you had to combine 4 of the previous rank of Rune Stone for a chance to upgrade it to the higher level. Now, through the refinement system, you can use any Rune Stone of any rank to upgrade its experience, more or less, and must consume a regent that can be purchased from certain NPCs. There's still that ever-present chance to fail, but at least you're not forced to carry dozens of a runestone type that you don't want for a chance to upgrade into ones that you do. Added in a similar vein was the artifact system, another equipable piece of gear that can be used with a hotkey and provides a simple passive effect. The interesting thing is that these can also be upgraded by feeding them runestones through the refinement system, and the quality of the item does go up quite a bit when it reaches a high enough level. If you have enough runestones slotted for gear and aren't too worried about upgrading them, consider feeding them to your artifact. You'll gain access to artifacts around level 21 following a quest. Companions now feature a secondary passive ability that affects your character if they're in the active slot, even if you don't have them summoned. The passive bonus is affected by your companion's rank as well, allowing a bit more tweaking to your stats and synergy with your companions. Many dungeons underwent a bit of new changes as well, allowing for more respawn unlocks to alleviate the inevitable backtracking that happens when you wipe out during a boss, and the ability to kick other party members out of your group, because if there's anything this community needed, it was more tools to allow them to be complete piles of human garbage. There have been 2 expansions, or as the game refers to them, modules, to the game so far, with Fury of the Feywild bringing the aforementioned Drow and 2 more elf races, a new campaign, dungeon, and skirmish, and adding the boon system, which is a new form of progression for those with maxed characters. The newest module, Shadow Mantle, implemented most of the stuff that I had mentioned in this backtrack and added a new campaign, and the Valindra's Tower dungeon to finally take on one of the game's biggest antagonists. Neverwinter comes across as being in a very confused spot. It's a Dungeons & Dragons styled game that doesn't let you overly customize, doesn't follow many, if any, of the D&D tropes. The action crowd seems to have a firm grip on this one, and the aforementioned war between the role-players and the goofballs is all but lost at this point, with the Foundry being the only solace for sanity. At least the content in there tends to be creative. I'll be sure to check back with this game and others in more episodes of MMO Grinder Backtrack. Oh yeah, general chat channels are still an annoyingly spam-soaked, unreadable mess, the dungeon learning curve is like running face-first into a brick wall, and this unquestionably remains the most horrible community I've seen in any MMO. Some things never change.